The most interesting guests. The coolest conversations. Keep watching episodes of the Grizzly Podcast, hosted by Irvin Scott. Follow the Grizzly Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and many more apps to have our episodes delivered right to your iPhone, Android, or any other device whenever they're released. Can't get enough of the Grizzly Podcast? Stay up to date with all our latest news, events, and behind-the-scenes footage by visiting grizzlypodcast.com.
So what does it mean to be on your Grizzly? It means hard work, dedication, and it means progress beyond your Grizzly. Hard work, dedication, and progress.
I'm on my Grizzly, y'all. I'm on my Grizzly. I'm on my Grizzly, y'all. I'm on my Grizzly. I'm on my Grizzly, y'all. I'm on my Grizzly. And if you're busy making moves, say it with me. I'm on my Grizzly, y'all. I'm on my Grizzly. I'm on my Grizzly, y'all. I'm on my Grizzly. I'm on my Grizzly, y'all. I'm on my Grizzly. And if you're busy making moves, say it with me.
Coming to you from the City of Angels, this is the Grizzly Podcast, hosted by Irvin Scott.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 5th season of the Grizzly Podcast. I am your host, Irvin Scott, and today I am joined by a very special guest. You've seen the teasers. I've created so much hype for this season, and not only for the season, but for my guest. Man, you've heard her name plenty of times. She's a former adult entertainer. She's also a fashion designer, a model, entrepreneur, dancer, director, producer, talent agent. The girl has done it all. A woman of many hats. Ladies and gentlemen, my guest today, Nina Mercedez. Woo!
Hey, how are you?
Hey, how's it going, Nina? How you doing today?
Really, really good. I'm in a good place. So I'm grateful to make it here another year, 2023, right?
It's great to hear. Now, the Grizzly Podcast is all about highlighting people such as yourself who are constantly on their grind, constantly on their hustle, just doing their best to work towards their dreams and doing their best to help motivate others to stay on their grind as well. In this case, on their Grizzly, hence the name, the Grizzly Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. You've accomplished so much in your career. For people that aren't familiar with your career and how it all got started, let's take them back. You began modeling for Walmart when you were in your teens, is that correct?
13 or 14 years old. So modeling was always something that I wanted to do. My parents were heroin dealers. And I say that in the respect of so the viewer gains a perspective of how I grew up, and to say that my parents were entrepreneurs, you know what I mean? So I grew up around not really parents working a 9-to-5, but my parents sold drugs, and they were pushers. They were the ultimate entrepreneurs, and they had to hustle in order to keep, the electricity on, to keep food in the house. And they did great at it in the beginning until they started using, and then it just kind of took a downfall. So when you start using your own product, it doesn't go well. But I grew up around my parents doing that. So I never really saw myself as having I'm going to do a 9-to-5. I was really bad in school. I hated school. I finished the 8th grade. And when I went to the 9th grade, I met who would be my husband. I got married at 15, and I had a baby at 15. So I dropped out in the 9th grade. I didn't finish the 9th grade. So I didn't do school too long. I don't like uniformity, if that makes sense. I was always in trouble in school. I had a couple of normal jobs, but I don't like being told what to do. But yeah, I did model for Walmart. I was very young. I was 14. And then from there, I think when I turned 17, I started modeling for Budweiser. And I was a Tejano model. And some people might still have that Budweiser. I was in a white bathing suit that said Budweiser, the classic one. And then that was kind of the stepping stone to everything else.
So what made you want to get into modeling?
if I take you back to the psychology of it, I'm going to cheat you out of my book. But when I was young, when I was maybe 6 through 9, I was molested by my grandfather, and he would take me a bath and he would put me on the counter where the mirror was at. And mind you, I'm 6, 7, 8. This went on for years, but he would tell me, your body's so beautiful. Look at how beautiful you are, and part of that was grooming, it was part of the grooming process. And if you do XYZ, I'm going to put money into your piggy bank. And at the time I grew up really, really poor, so I thought if I could get this, and now I have the mind of a 6 or 7-year-old, right? I'm thinking if I do what he says and I do all these things, okay, so now you're telling me that this is an adult that you love telling you that your body naked is beautiful. So he would put money in my piggy bank and he would tell me, okay, well, if you do what I say, I'm going to put money into your piggy bank. So eventually my piggy bank was about this tall, and it was it was a cylinder thing. I can't remember what exactly it was, but it was full of change. So from a young age, I was groomed to think my body is beautiful and I can make money from it. When my family did find out, they probably should have put me in counseling. And I think more of that has to be now, the psychology of that. When we think about strippers and porn stars, we have to ask them, why are you okay with it? Where did that come from? So then where do you need to heal, right? Like that discussion needs to be brought, because majority of the girls who are strippers and porn stars, I'm telling you, they've gone through something in their life that they haven't acknowledged yet. So when I was young, I knew that I was fine with, what do you want to see? How much do you have? You know what I mean? So with Budweiser and things like that, it's not that I always knew that I wanted to be a model, but I always knew that I could make money with my body. And that was just something that I learned early on, through that process, unfortunately. And nobody ever said, hey, this is not right, or hey, the way your thinking works is wrong, or, I come from a Mexican background. So when that happened, they were like, don't tell anybody, just don't tell anybody. And some of my family was like, you're lying, that didn't happen. And because of my culture, it never happened. And we're definitely not calling the police. So this man never had to pay anything. And we're not going to talk to you about it, because if we talk to you about it, now it becomes real. It becomes a real thing, and we have to acknowledge it. So you're 8 years old, forget about it, you'll be fine. When in reality, it kind of just molded who I was, because nobody said, hey, what happened to you wasn't right. And the way that your thinking is now, we want to help you undo that so that you can learn that you are smart, you are worthy, and you can do so many things without having to show your body. It is what it is. So it wasn't like I aspired to be that, but I was always okay showing my body for money. So the modeling went into getting into a marriage where I was physically abused. So when I finally had to run from that with my child, my mom was like, hey, there's a place and they're hiring for lingerie models, and you should go down there because it'll get you out of the situation, and then you can get your own apartment and move out. And I was like, okay, well, where's the interview at? And my mom drove me down there, and it was a strip club. I was 17. I'm following what my mom says is right. And before you know it, I'm on stage taking tips. So everything kind of led, I think tragic situations and desperation put me where I'm at. I take full accountability. I'm fine with it. But a lot of society needs more of like, why did you do XYZ? We need to try to understand that. We don't understand why somebody like you would do that. So I went from Walmart to like Budweiser. I think back then I did a bikini photo shoot for some car magazines that they were like, this is like a kid, which I was. I had no business taking those photos. But I had tried early on to get into magazines and stuff like that.
Wow. And and this is the first time I'm actually hearing about this, and knowing that I followed your career over the years. I'm very sorry that you went through something like that.
I can't even tell you how many hundreds of people DM me and said, I never said this to anybody. You're the first person I'm telling. My 2 uncles raped me, or men. I've had a lot of men, and it's not just Hispanic. You would think it would be. It's people of color. It's minorities. It's a lot of Black people. It's a lot of Hispanic people. It's a lot of just minority people that this happens to, that they've never told anybody. And I experienced this a lot, you know, being able to say your story out loud. When you let it out loud, you let it out of your body. It's a crazy thing that happens, but you have to say it out loud. Like, this is what happened to me, to release that. But in the weight loss industry, I was so popular and I helped so many people lose weight in the fitness industry because the majority of what I focused on wasn't exercise and food. Like, yeah, I have a great body and yes, I eat. That's not it. Most people overeat or eat wrong because we eat our feelings. There was a lot of women within my groups that were 300 pounds, 400 pounds. And when I said, okay, let's unpack some boxes, ladies, let's start unpacking those boxes. You don't have to say it out loud to me, but I want you to start to write it in a diary, take it to a flame, or write the person who hurt you a letter and then take it to a flame. Don't give it to them and burn it, but you release that. And that was really the key to a lot of the women in my fitness programs dropping 100 pounds, dropping 200 pounds, is they were able to heal within themselves, not really go out and tell their family this happened or, you know, say anything to the person that hurt them, but forgive it from the inside, you know, because for me, my family doesn't talk to me. I'm the black sheep of the family. They're never going to see it. They're never going to say, hey, Mariza, we're sorry, you know, that we didn't believe you. We're sorry that we called you a liar when you were 7 or 8 years old. We're sorry that when your husband was beating you and you were in the hospital with 2 black eyes, our side to it. Well, there's 2 sides to every story, Mariza. You know, you're being a bit dramatic. They're not going to say, oh, hey, sorry, when your parents died, we came and took everything from your parents' house and abandoned you guys. Like, they're never going to apologize for those things. That's the work that I have to do from within to say, you know what, I'm okay with that. And I'm going to write them all a letter about how I really feel about it. And then I'm going to burn it, because giving it to them, they're never going to see it. Their perception won't allow them to take accountability for that. There's too much guilt within that. There's too much, there's guilt within that. Saying you're sorry, you're taking that accountability, and they're never going to do that. They're never going to do that. So that is for me. And my telling my story is so that other people can relate to it and then say, if she can do that, regardless of my road, if I can do it, you can do it too, if you just start to do the work. So the point I've taken comfort in, because for a long time I was angry, and I did say, well, why the fuck did I have to go through that? I'm one person. I shouldn't have had to go through all these things. I mean, as a kid, I went hungry because my parents would do heroin instead of buying us groceries. You know, they would use the money on heroin instead of paying the water or the electricity. You know, like, I grew up in poverty. Sometimes the only time I ate is if I went to school and had school lunches. Like, thank goodness that school lunches were around. And I'm a big advocate of keeping that free for kids, because for me, if I didn't eat at school, I wasn't going to eat at home. My parents were on heroin and they were passed out, and they didn't care if we ate or not. So me being able to go through all these things, let me show you how you can come out too. Not like I got through, you could get through, but let me show you how you can get here, because we don't have to be a product of how we grew up. I've never done drugs in my life. Because I was around that doesn't mean that's who I have to be. Now, I did take the entrepreneurial part of what my parents did, but I didn't take their habit. You know, my sister is a Catholic school teacher. My brother is an entrepreneur and a farmer in Kauai. None of us were druggies. You know, none of us did drugs because my parents did it. But I really feel like the point of me going through all these things was so that I could have such a big public platform to be able to show other people and tell my story, so that you can see somebody did come out of it and you can come out of it too. And at any point in time, you can change your life around. It's possible 100%.
You've used your experience now to kind of help others cope with it, and or whatever situation that they may be going through. So kudos to you for being able to do that. And you know, you mentioned that you were like the black sheep in the family. So my question to you now is, what is your relationship like now with your parents?
So my parents passed away when I was about 24. My dad shared a dirty needle with my mom, and she ended up getting hepatitis, and she died within 3 months. And my mom and my dad were super, super close. They were almost inseparable. And my father committed suicide on Thanksgiving. So within a range of like August, she passed away at the end of August. maybe like the range of like 2-3 months, I lost both of my parents. I was like 24, my brother was like 15. My dad's side of the family, when he passed away, I didn't exist. But I'm also the black sheep in the respect of like, I will say it like it is. I don't care about the consequence. I have a big mouth and I will tell you exactly what's on my mind. I speak very directly. Even in business, I have men all the time who don't like me, or they're like, you're really mean and we're scared of you. I get that all the time of like, we're scared of you. And my mom's family didn't like my dad because they come from a little bit of money and my dad was never good enough. And of course he was on heroin and they didn't want their daughter on heroin. My dad's family never liked my mom because they felt like she thought she was too good. She came from a good neighborhood and a good household, and you know, you should be with somebody else. So I used to get into it with my dad's side of the family all the time because they call my mom Fea. My mom was beautiful, but they always liked to knock her down. And I would come in and be like, don't talk to my mom like that. Like, watch how you talk to my mom. And they'd be like, oh, you know, you need to control Mariza's mouth. And I'd be like, you know, I'm like 13 or 14, like, let's go. Like, watch how you talk to my mom, because I will fuck everybody up in this house. And so we either didn't get invited to family stuff, or it was always like, Mariza has an attitude, Mariza has a problem. And then my mom's side of the family, they just kind of disregarded me and my brother. That's the feeling that I always felt growing up is, you know, they are the side, and I say this sometimes on my social media, and it comes across as like, if you come from the South Texas, right? My grandfather swam here illegally, and I'm super proud of that. He was indigenous 100%. There's no record of his family because the church didn't get to them in time. They were indigenous until the 17 or 1800s. They were indigenous. They were Nawa. My mom's family, they're the kind of, I don't know if does anybody have the Hispanic people, the Mexican people in your family who are like, we're Spanish. We come from Spain. We're Spaniards. And you're like, no, you're fucking not. You like, go do your 23andMe. How Spanish are you? Like, so they're very like, want to be white complected. They don't want anybody speaking Spanish. They want you to come across more Americanized. And they still to this day claim that they're Spaniards. And my mom's as white as this wall. My sister's as white as this wall. I'm the darkest one because I'm dark like my dad. But they kind of, Mariza's dark. And they would call me negra. They'd be like, oh, here comes negrita, here comes negra. And it was not an endearing term. It was a derogatory term. Now, today, I love my skin. I love getting dark. I don't even wear sunscreen out. But my parents passed away. My mom's family blamed my dad. I blame my dad. I think my dad blamed himself, which is why he committed suicide. And it was really tragic. Like, he invited me over, asked me to make his favorite meal that my mom used to make him. And in the morning when I woke up, he had overdosed on methadone. So I was the one to find him, and I had to call the hospital. And on Thanksgiving, we pulled the plug on him. And then I didn't speak to either side of my family. I'm not in contact with them, but it's for me. It's because I respect myself, and it's because I just don't need that in my life. I can go without it and I'll be fine. For the rest of my life, I'll be fine.
I definitely hear that. And why be around that negative energy all the time too? You know, despite it being family or whatever, like, just because it's family doesn't mean that you have to tolerate these people. Sometimes it's like you try to be the bigger person, and it's just like you can't get through to people. On top of that, they always say you can't teach old dogs new tricks. You know, they're already set in their ways in that sense. Good for you. And, you know, going back to your modeling career as well, you later worked as a fitness model in magazines such as Muscular Development. What was it like working for Muscular Development and being a part of that at that time?
There's a funny story, right? I was working in the strip club, and I always say, like, I could have taken so many different directions with my career, and I always had the opportunity to take it in a different direction, but unfortunately, I relaxed on what was easy, right? And at the time, I was dancing in the clubs, which was making a lot of money. I was a feature dancer, and a lot of people don't realize this. They think that I got my notoriety from the adult industry, but I was famous before the adult industry. Who I was before the adult industry is why I got signed as a Vivid girl. So I was Miss Nude Universe. I was Miss Nude North America. And these are like real pageants. They're not like, hey, you just come out and twirl around the stage. This is a real full pageant. Yes, it's in a strip club, but it was not easy to win these pageants. I'll say that. But I won all these pageants. And then I just was like in the club, like, I want to do more. I want to do mainstream. Like I can do this. Like, and I love Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I had the big book, the bodybuilding book. And I followed that my whole life. Like the principles to bodybuilding is so easy, whether it doesn't have to be, this is for women, this is for men. We all have the same body. So building muscle on it should be almost the same, right? But I would look at these fitness magazines and I would watch these girls and be like, I can do that. Like, I want to do that. Like, why can't I do that? Like, why do I just have to do this? I want to do that. I can do that. I can do that. And that's what we do, right? We say, well, I want to do that. But then do you pursue it? Is there something inside you that says, no, I'm going to do that. And I've always had that about me. I'm very, if I see the impossible and I'm like, no, I'm going to do that. And then I believe in my mind, that's the kind of delusional crazy part, that I'm like, no, I'm going to do it. So I went and I got my muscular development, and on the inside, there's an email that you can email the editor for submission. So I took some at-home photos and I was like, hey, I would love to be a part of the magazine. I didn't have nearly as much muscle in my head I did, but when you look at the girls in the magazine, I was not like them. And they were like, hey, we think you'd be a great candidate to shoot with Michael Stickett, and you can shoot with him in like 4 to 6 months, get a hold of him, figure out what that looks like. So at the time I was like, oh, I'm going to break into the fitness career. I was so excited. Started dancing less. I started working out more. I was getting ready for my shoot with Michael Stickett in, I think he was in like San Francisco area. I may be mistaken on that, but I was in Corpus Christi. I had to fly to Michael Stickett, and I can't remember what came first, if I had signed, because I knew that I had already had the name Mercedes. But I flew over there. I didn't get paid anything. I had to pay for my own flight. Michael Stickett was like, you can stay with me. I'll shoot you in my house. We did some beautiful, beautiful shoots. I did one cover and 2 centerfolds, and they're all layouts, but one of them was a cover and 2 of them were centerfolds. And it was when Muscular Development did more sexy stuff, and they had like pretty girls on their cover. They weren't really covering, like, it was like when sex and fitness was kind of coming into being one. I absolutely loved doing that. When I shot the 4th time with Michael Stickett and the magazines were coming out and they were doing great, my parents passed away in the middle of that. And I was kind of put in a spot of needing money, of being like, I'm 24, my parents passed away, they were on Section 8, so they couldn't keep the house. My brother didn't have anywhere to go. So I had to figure it out. And one of my agents was like, hey, we have an opportunity. The Stephen Hirsch, who owns Vivid, wants to have a meeting with you in LA. He's going to fly you down there. How do you feel about that? And I was like, well, I guess I'll put the fitness stuff in my back pocket for now, because I need to make money. I need to figure this out. I have 2 kids. At the time I had a sick boyfriend and my parents had just passed away. Mind you, I'm in complete shock. This is like within 2 or 3 months, my mom's dead. My dad's committed suicide. Everyth's spinning, So I have this meeting and Steve is like, hey, I'll move you to LA. I'll help you get your first place. I'll front you money. I'm guaranteeing you 6 figures a year. And this is the deal. I had never seen an adult film before in my life. I just knew that I had a 8th grade education, and I have all these people that I need to support, and I don't want to really be stripping as much as I was. And just mentally, I needed a break. I needed somebody to come into my life who was successful and say, here's the answer. I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to move you. Everything's going to be fine, and I'm going to take care of it. That's how that came about. But I ended up doing those 4 covers. They were great. I think I would have been headed in a great direction, but tragedy struck, and then I ended up in the adult film industry. So there's a break between fitness covers and then adult. I ended up going back into the fitness industry, and I competed in NPC, and I have bodybuilding photos, and then I started training people. So there was a break that I had to put my dreams down to take care of everybody.
And sometimes that's what actually happens in life. you had to do what you had to do to take care of your family. So you went a different direction. And so eventually that led to, your adult entertainment career. Now I got to ask you about your name because, maybe a lot of people might be curious as well. How did that whole name come about? From what I read, I read that Mercedes was actually a tribute to your mom. It was her hometown of Mercedes, Texas. Is that correct? And then you later added Nina to your name because it was so that people wouldn't confuse you when they do like an internet search. Is that right?
Yeah. So my mom is from Mercedes, Texas. I think it was Mercedes during my adult career. And then when I left, we added Nina to it so that there was for internet searching, if you look up Mercedes, at that time, Mercedes-Benz was suing a lot of people for using the name Mercedes and confusing it. And so we added Nina so that you could then trademark it and then you could buy NinaMercedes.com or Nina Mercedes XXX without getting in trouble with those companies. So having a first and a second keeps you safe. And I think that's why we added it. It was never that serious, but that was why.
So you eventually entered the adult film industry after contacting Stephen Hirsch, and you signed a contract with Vivid Entertainment, and you remained exclusively contracted to Vivid for about 4 years or so. What was it like being a part of Vivid at the time?
I walked in with a contract as a Vivid girl, which is mostly unheard of. Usually people have to do scenes, and then the companies look at your scenes and they decide if they want to make you a contract girl. I walked in the door with a 6-figure contract in front of me because I was already Miss Nude Universe and I had already done fitness magazine. So I had some notoriety, some fame. I had already done Hustler. I was already in Penthouse. So they were like, okay, here's your opportunity. Steve is an amazing, amazing man. I think I'm so grateful that he found me when he did because I needed that guidance. I needed that somebody to say, in a regard of like, I'm not hitting on you. All of this is professional, but I want to help mentor your career into the right direction. We're going to get you in magazines. We're going to get you with Doc Johnson. We're going to get you your own doll. We're going to put you at Playboy parties. Steve is always super respectful, 100% business. And this is just my experience with him. And Marcy, his sister who ran the company, they were always great to me. I think twice they had to pay to move me to LA. They didn't have to, but they were like, you'd be better here. They knew the guy that I was with was really toxic. So they, tried to get me out of that situation and help me because I moved back to Texas and they were like, you got to get out of there. You need to move back here and we'll help you. So they were always, whenever they would see me in certain situations, they would always, as a kind of Vivid was kind of like a family, would try to say, do you need help? We're going to help you. We don't care what it costs. Let's get you out of this situation and help you do better. There was a time that I was on diet pills because, as a contract girl, when you're making that kind of money, you have to be a certain weight. That's expected of you. So when you are gaining a little weight, there's a conversation that happens and Steve brings me to the office and he's like, so let's talk about your weight. But there was a time that I was dancing on the road and I was really thin. I'm 5'3" and I was probably 115 pounds, and which is for me, you could see all of the bones in my chest. I've never done drugs, but I was on diet pills for a little bit too long. So I was really skinny. My face was super hollow. I may have been drinking a little bit too much. And they brought me in and they were like, hey, so we noticed you're really thin. We found some places for you. And I was like, what? Some places? And they were like, yeah, if you have like a drug problem, you could just be honest with us. We're not going to judge you. So in that regard, they always looked out for me. They always took care of me. They definitely guided my career into stardom, into that next level of like, I got a lot of mainstream opportunities being a Vivid girl. I got asked if I wanted to do telenovelas. They were like, hey, we'll teach you Spanish, and a lot of great opportunities that I wouldn't have had I not been with the company. So I love Vivid. I'm grateful for them. And when I did get out of the business, I told them I've found God. My life is going in a different direction. I'm healing. I'm completely out of the adult industry. I want you to take all of my scenes down. And I thought I was going to get some pushback with that. And they were like, we totally understand. We're so happy for you. And they took everything down. So I'm grateful. I really do. That was a great company. Steve is a great person. Marcy's amazing. I mean, everybody that worked there, Chichi LaRue, everybody, they're amazing people. They're an amazing company. I don't have one bad thing to say about them. Now, I was there when they were a condom only company. A lot of people don't realize this, but I left my contract when they decided to go non-condom. When they decided to go non-condom, I was like, I'm good. Like, I'm good. I'm out. So, and I left.
Paris Hilton and Kim K also released their own tapes as part of Vivid at the time. They had acquired the rights to these tapes, so celebrity sex tapes started becoming a thing. How did it affect you at the time when celebrities started releasing their sex tapes?
I was still there. Kim K tapes came out. In fact, when Ray J did his Vivid movie, they called me and asked me if I wanted to play the part of Kim K. And I was like, absolutely fucking not. Like, it wasn't part of my contract. It was like, hey, do you want to do this? This is what the pay is on it. And, you know, they think that you would be great in this. And I was like, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to play Kim Kardashian. I'm Nina fucking Mercedes. Like, I'm already somebody in this industry. She's just getting in it. And I'm happy for her. And I hope she makes $100 million billion, but I still want to have my own shine. I don't want to ever be known as like the Kim Kardashian doppelganger. Like, I stand in my own light. I'm not going to get overshadowed by that stuff. But I was always like, yeah, let these girls make their money, because it makes it more acceptable for us in society, which is like an industry that's frowned upon. Now you have these celebrities doing their own sex tapes, and then people feel like they're okay. It was really that. And I ended up leaving Vivid and starting my own company.
In 2013, you launched your own apparel and swimwear line called La Scorpia. What was it like getting into the clothing game? And what made you want to launch your own apparel and swimwear line at the time?
So I was living in Vegas, and so I wanted to sell something a little bit more upscale, a little bit beautiful, things that you really couldn't find anywhere else. But within getting into the clothing industry, I found that when you sell one size, there was a lot of problems with that. There was a lot of returns. There was a lot of the bottoms fit, but the tops don't fit. You're selling online, so people are not able to try things on. It was a beautiful thought. It made its money back, but it was just something that I didn't want to keep pursuing. It wasn't like, I love it this much that I'm gonna want to go through all these hurdles. I didn't love it that much. So I ended up switching, and La Scorpia store started to sell fajas at the time, which is when I was getting into fitness. At that time, I was getting into competing in fitness, and I actually did use a faja. And there was a lot of misconception behind fajas. So I started to sell those and then educate people on, like, this is why you wear it, and this is how it really works, and here's the truth behind it. I'm going to be honest with you. So people found me to be a credible source when it came to fajas, because there was a lot of misinformation, and people were selling them left and right and saying you can lose weight just by wearing it in the house and vacuuming, and that's not how they work. So I was one of the people who came out and was like, okay, listen, let me be real with you guys. This is how they work. This is the difference between a short and a long, and how can I help you with it? Buy one. After the fajas, I ended up getting out of the clothing industry.
So after launching your own clothing line, you were also involved with CosplayStars.com, which features photos of other actresses cosplaying at comic book conventions. What was it like being a part of that?
Cosplay was Tara Patrick's idea. Tara Patrick had already been doing well in cosplay. Tara was a Vivid girl when I was a Vivid girl, and me and her were good friends within Vivid. And Tara had already taken, she had done Comic-Con. I mean, she was making her own costumes. She was doing amazing with this stuff. And we were both featured dancers. So we come from a background of making costumes. And she contacted me and was like, hey, I'm doing this cosplay thing, and I know you do some really great costumes and cosplay. I think it would be something you're interested in. Do you want to sign with me? And so Tara really brought me into that, kind of showed me what it was, how to sell things. And I always took her lead with that. Like, Tara is 100% the person to give credit when it comes to cosplay stars. She is who those shows wanted. But then she would say, okay, well, I'll come, but I'm going to bring Nina Mercedez. I'm going to bring Taya Parker. I'm going to bring these girls, and then we can have a booth. And it was funny because we never had a booth in the cosplayer section. We always had a booth in the celebrity section. So it was really nice. And I'm really grateful to her for bringing me on with that, because she didn't have to. She could have just been like, I'm Tara Patrick and I'm here, you know, and instead it's not often that you have girls who don't gatekeep and who want to share that with you. So she's always been a super sweetheart, and I love her to death. I absolutely love her. But that was her idea. We did a lot of signings. It was always funny how many people, celebrity-wise, would come to our booth and be like, Tara, I love you, Tara. And I'd be like, oh my God. Like, it would be like superstars, you know, and they would just see Tara and be like, ah. So she always had all those people starstruck.
I want to talk about something that you've been doing for some time now. And kudos to you again for doing this, because the last few years, I've been seeing you kind of push this online. And you're actually the woman responsible for Apothecary by Mariza. And this is a line that you actually launched, right? It's actually a brand that focuses on handmade soaps, feminine care, hair regrowth, and jeweled manifest candles. What made you want to launch Apothecary by Mariza?
I was very spiritual at the time. I was very tapped into my spirituality. I was meditating. I had just seen Sadhguru in Dallas. I was going to Hawaii 4 times a year and meditating and doing all these things. I was doing plant medicine, and something in my mind was like, you're very talented. Like, you need to go back to what your calling is and help heal people. And I started making medicinal soaps in my apartment and candles. And I did a colon cleanse tea because I was in the fitness industry. But what I was trying to explain to people is there's an emotional part of it, but also cleaning your colon has a lot to do with why you don't lose weight. Like, if your colon can't push certain things through, then you can eat salad all day. But if your colon's clogged, nothing's moving through. And some people carry up to 25 pounds of waste because they've never done a colon cleanse. And I formulated my own, like, through all the research and all the education and talking to all these people. I contacted a company and I was like, I want this in it, I want this in it, and I want this. And I put all these ingredients together and I said, mix that and then let me have it, and I'll see if it works. And they were like, okay. And then eventually I started to order everything separately, mixing it with my own hands. And then I put it into glass jars at the time. And I sold my own colon cleanse out of like Michael's jars. It was very like homemade, but it was something that I felt like was so important that was going to help a lot of people. I made like feminine soap. I made a lot of feminine products that people don't realize, like steaming goes back to the Mayan times. You know, it's part of our ancestry of healing the feminine. Steaming goes back to the Mayan times. It's steaming that goes up to your uterus, and it cleans everything out. So rather than grabbing stuff off the shelf that's not good for you, that we're finding out is giving you cancer, let's go back to things that healed us, that our ancestors used, which is plant medicine that is still relevant to today. It's just that the pharmaceutical companies don't want you to know about it because it works better and they want to keep you on their stuff. So it was really, just at the time, it was my calling to educate more people about that. And I started it out of my living room, and I made Apothecary by Mariza made its first $1 million within 2 years, which is a little unheard of when it comes to a small business. I'm still the only person that runs Apothecary. Everybody thinks that there's like employees and I have a warehouse. No, it's still me. I do it downstairs. I have an office now, but I have melters. I still mix all the steams with my hands. I mix all the teas by myself. I package everything. There's no employees. I do shipping. I do customer service. I drop it off at the post office. I do everything from beginning to end when it comes to Apothecary by Mariza. So it was just a calling. It's a calling that I had, and it's done well. And it's only done well because at the time, my social media following on Instagram really believed in me And I was very educated in what I was talking about. And I've gotten so many emails, like you could look at our feedback on this website. And those are all real reviews of people who are like, oh my God. And I don't know where I'd be without this, or I'm so glad I found this. And it's a intuition. It was started as an intuition thing of like something telling me you need to make sea moss soap, or you need to make a detox tea, and figure out what that looks like, and researching it and really loving it. And knowing that nobody could take my money from me. I'm not sharing a percentage. I'm not making 20%, 30%, 40%. I don't have a company saying, well, you could take this vacation if you do this many volume points. I will take a vacation when I've made enough money. I advocate against in the fitness industry. Like if you're in the fitness industry, like one of my tips is never join an MLM. Start your own business. Like figure out how you can start selling your own fat burners and your own, because at any point in time, you never want to be in a situation where you're accused of something that you did not do, or somebody's giving you a percentage of 1 million volume points, of 2 million volume points. And then to just say, you know what? No, we're taking your check in the middle of COVID. So with my own company, I'm responsible for what I make, and I'm responsible for everything. And I'm not making a percentage. I'm making 100%. This is my business. So when I say this is my business, I don't mean like start your own business and make 30%, 40%. No, I make 100%. I'm responsible for everything. It's a better idea to have a thought and say, I don't care if I have to start at Michael's. I don't care if I'm just doing one thing and then later on it's going to be other things. I believe in myself to know that I'm talented at XYZ, and I'm going to start at Etsy. I'm going to start putting my own website, whatever it is. If you have a talent or a calling or something that you're good at doing, just know there's other people that need what you have, regardless of what the scale is. I mean, you may be great at knitting. You may be good at sewing. Who knows? And you now sew jean jackets that have, little patches on them. And you sell those. And who knew those would sell for $200? And now you're making 100% of the money on. Right now, I'm trying to get into Walmart with my soap and my oil. So I'm working on expanding it. But that is just something that the universe was like, this is what you're supposed to be doing, and this is your next thing. So
you've experienced some setbacks, but never did you allow these setbacks to define who you were, because you continue to forge ahead and just carve your own path, basically. So for the people tuning in right now, our listeners, our viewers, for anybody that's actually trying to pursue a dream, if you could offer them any advice, what sort of advice would you give these people that are trying to pursue a dream or just trying to make something happen with their life?
Take out the outside noise. Once I was able to take out the outside noise, and I say this from childhood, because growing up, I was told I was ugly. I was not good enough. I was looked down on because my skin was darker. It was something that I could not control. Growing up, sometimes things were against me. People were like, you're not good enough for this. You're not good enough for that. But I always blocked that out and was like, no, I could do fitness magazines. I don't care if I've never done it. I don't care if I've never competed. I'm going to send my photos in because I believe in me, regardless of what you say. And that has been throughout my life. I've always said, well, I don't care what you think because I want to do this. And so I'm going to figure it out. And this is what I'm going to do. I would say block out any outside noise. You never need to ask somebody, what do you think? Do you think I should do this? Or what? I have to ask my husband, or make your decision. Follow that intuition. When you get knocked down, stay down. And a lot of people will be like, no, get up really fast. No, stay down. Make sure you land on your back. Figure out how you got there. How did you get down? And sit with it for a little bit. Take your time getting up. You don't have to jump back up and back into it. And that goes within relationships, with career, whatever it is. If you fall, get on your back and stay there and look up and figure out, how did I get here and how am I not going to get back here again? And if you end up back there again, it's fine. There's something else you needed to learn. Something in my mind was like, you're really talented at this and you need to do this. And even if you're buying stuff from Michael's and you're not making a big profit in the beginning, start it. do the tea. It's going to make money. And I listened to that and I trust that. And I never asked anybody. I think I did. I talked to 2 people about it close to me, and they were like, yeah, that's kind of like that market's very oversaturated, or you're not going to do very good in it. But Apothecary By Mariza did $1 million in 2 years. And that's a lot of money. And it's 100% online, and it's 100% through social media. So it obviously, regardless of what everybody else thought, because I believed in myself, it was successful. So don't listen to the outside noise. If your intuition is telling you that that's where you need to be and that's where you need to be doing, listen to that and follow that. And it's not always going to be, it's not going to be an up. It's never going to be an up. It's always going to be up and down, up and down, up and down, because that's what life is. So expect those downs and then learn from those lessons. Because if we take the downs and we're like, oh, this happened, fuck that, I'm not going to do it. Just change your perception to say, what was the lesson within that? And every person who's ever made $1 million has done personal development. That is one thing that I highly, highly suggest.
Wonderful advice for anybody interested in knowing more about your career, learning more about what you're doing today. For anybody interested in following you, again, wanting to know that information about what's going on in your career now, where can they follow you online?
My new Instagram is It's Nina Mercedez, and I post on there once a day. And then my Facebook is Life with Mariza. You can read on there, but if you want to have a personal relationship and talk to me one-on-one, it would be my OnlyFans is really the place to interact with me on there. Like, I do live shows every 2 weeks. So I have a live show coming up on Wednesday. And for the first hour, I just literally sit and talk to guys, answer questions. It's like the way that me and you are here. So the best place, I would say, if you're trying to have a conversation with me or really get to know me, it would be on OnlyFans, because that's what you pay for, right? Is to be able to have a conversation with people. But I mean, I post on Instagram and Facebook, and one-on-one, it would be OnlyFans.
So you've been working in this industry for a long time now, and to see what you've accomplished now over the years, I'm so proud of you. And Nina, I wish you a happy and successful 2023. Nina, with that being said, stay on your grizzly.
Thank you for having me.
Get it poppin'. Let's get it.
Yo, that's what I'm talking about.
Don't miss a thing. Subscribe to the Grizzly Podcast YouTube channel to access full episodes, video clips, and more on YouTube. The most authentic podcast is online at grizzlypodcast.com and on all major podcast platforms. Guest appearances and real conversations that will push you to hustle. The Grizzly Podcast is now streaming.
Hi, and welcome to Trademark Expediters. Whether you need a trademark or copyright, we can help make the process easy and affordable. Protect your company name, logo, or slogan with the trademark. Protect your songs, books, photographs, and other creative works with a copyright. Complete our easy online questionnaire in 15 minutes or less. Clear pricing, no hidden fees. 100% satisfaction guaranteed. Get started today. Learn more at trademarkexpediters.com or call one of our friendly specialists at 1-800-510-1082. Affordable, easy, expedited service. Trademark Expediters.
We've shared success stories from people of all backgrounds and inspired others to pursue their dreams. Relive those moments and stream episodes of the Grizzly Podcast on our website, grizzlypodcast.com, and on all major podcast platforms.
Yo, turn it up.
Hard work, dedication, and progress. Stay on your Grizzly.
Yeah.
Thanks for checking out another Grizzly Podcast episode. We'll see you next time.